What if KSI's boxing career went down a completely different path? What if every fight he took, every opponent he faced, and every moment in the ring had a purpose to catapult him past Jake Paul, to outshine him, and to leave his mark on the sport of boxing? This is the alternate universe where I take control of KSI's career, and I'll show you how it could have been done, but it won't be easy. And it definitely won't be predictable. We're reimagining KSI's career with 12 carefully selected fights, each one building him up stronger, smarter, and more dangerous, while outshining Jake Paul every step of the way. This is the KSI boxing career, done right. Before we dive into KSI's alternate universe, let me explain the rules that make this possible. These aren't just what-ifs, they're strategic decisions that'll keep his career realistic but explosive. So here's what we're working with. 1. First off, JJ can have the same amount of fights as Jake Paul. No more, no less. We're keeping it grounded, but there's room to grow. Second, JJ's fight with Tommy Fury is a fixed point. He has to fight him, but the outcome can't be a win. He can get a draw, be winning, and get injured, or maybe even a no contest, but no victory here. Third, JJ can't fight the same opponents Jake has fought, or the same ones he's faced in real life. That means no repeat matchups, and no easy way out. Rule number 4. JJ can't fight Jake Paul in this universe, but his goal is to outshine Jake in every way possible through bigger, better opponents and more respect in the boxing world. 5. JJ can never take a step backwards in the public's perception. If he beats a tougher opponent, he needs to make it look better and quicker than the last. And if he loses, he's got to come back stronger, or it's game over. 6. JJ's never going for a world title. He's not interested in the top 10. He can take on UFC fighters, only if they're on a losing streak or past their prime, but no dream matchups against the best of the best. 7. Finally, JJ needs to fight smarter, take the right risks, and leave a legacy bigger than Jake's. Every fight counts, every choice matters. This isn't just about wins and losses. It's about strategy, legacy, and making sure JJ doesn't just survive in boxing, but thrives. After years of criticizing Jake Paul's opponents for being easy journeymen put in there just for Jake to knock out, the world was eager to see how JJ would make his boxing return. Since he claimed to be levels above Jake,
I'm above Jake's level, and I would love to prove it. I don't think we'll ever get the chance because Jake doesn't want to do it.
fans expected a big fight, but when JJ announced that his grand comeback,
your boy is back to boxing, yeah. All you motherfuckers saying he ain't fighting again, he's sticking with the music, he's a pussy. Stick with the fucking Simon videos, you pussy. Well, look at me now. I'm back in the ring. August 27th, 2022, I'm out here.
Would be against Alex Wasabi. The reaction was brutal. Fans laughed, mocked him, and the public narrative shifted in Jake's favor. Then, by some twist of fate, Wasabi pulled out due to a concussion he suffered while sparring for the fight.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is breaking news. Wasabi is injured. Injuries, I heard concussions. This is what is happening right now, all right? Wasabi is injured. Won't be fighting KSI on August 27th. Breaking right now.
Fans saw this as JJ's chance at redemption, but somehow, things got even worse. Instead of taking the opportunity to book a better opponent, he announced a 2-fights-in-1-night event against Swarms and Pineda, 2 fighters with little to no boxing experience.
But yes, as you know, I am fighting Swarms. Wow, Swarms? I'm paying how much to see you fight Swarm? Wow, what an L from KSI. Wow, Jake Paul with the W. I mean, we don't get to see him fight, but still, W. You suck. Who the fuck is Swamps? I don't even know who this fucking guy is. Honestly, I'm more excited for Fusi versus Deji. Hey, yo, what's going on with Gibbon Austin? Wow, you're just gonna duck Jake Paul like that? Major L. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, quack. I used to be a big fan of KSI, but since this L, he sucks. You've lost all your fans now, bro. You're massive. Wow, that KSI L has now made me a fan of Alex Wasabi.
And this is where our reality takes a sharp turn. Instead of doubling down on the embarrassment and fighting 2 complete nobodies out of ego, JJ made a drastic change. In our reality, he replaced them with FaZe Sensei, a YouTube boxer, but one of the few with a legitimate martial arts background. Fans were immediately more excited, calling it an equal or even better fight than Jake Paul's first opponent, Anis and Gibb. But that excitement didn't last long. Jake Paul released a video spinning the narrative, pointing out that JJ and FaZe Sensei were friends and had even sparred together while JJ was preparing to fight Logan Paul. He accused the fight of being nothing more than a televised sparring session, and just like that, public perception shifted.
Guys, this is absolutely absurd what KSI just did here. He is now fighting one of his friends. Talk about getting paid to take a dive. He is fighting that is his friend that they've made together who has never fought before. Dude has a t-shirt on in the fight poster. They don't even have a picture of this guy shirtless. This is what I would expect from you, KSI. You taking an easy fight, an easy way out. Your friend who's gonna just take a dive. This event should be for free.
JJ needed to respond, so he clapped back with a new fight poster, announcing that it would still be a 2-in-1 night event, but now featuring both FaZe Sensei and Anthony Taylor. Taylor wasn't just any random fighter. He was Jake Paul's sparring partner, had experience in lower-level MMA fights, and had even gone the distance with Tommy Fury. The fans approved. KSI had won back the public. First up was KSI versus FaZe Sensei. It was a competitive fight that went into the second half of round 3, where JJ managed to get a TKO with a body shot, breaking Sensei's rib. But it wasn't a highlight reel moment. It felt like Sensei could have continued, but chose not to. And unfortunately, things got even worse with Anthony Taylor. The fight was a clinch fest. It was frustrating to watch, just like in JJ's real fight with Pineda, where Pineda kept dropping to the canvas and complaining about shots to the back of the head. Here, Taylor constantly clinched, slowing the fight to a crawl. The referee took points from Taylor, but he still wouldn't stop. Eventually, the ref had enough and waved off the fight, giving KSI the win. Now, in real reality, after JJ beat Swarms and Pineda in anticlimactic fashion, fans immediately compared his performances to Jake Paul's devastating knockouts of Gib and Nate Robinson. Instead of proving that JJ was levels above Jake, his return had the opposite effect. It exposed that he was levels behind and had a lot of catching up to do. In our reality, things played out slightly differently. The opponents were far more credible, so the public perception wasn't as brutal. Instead of believing JJ was way behind Jake, the sentiment was more like, Jake is ahead, but by how much? Hopefully, that clears up how our reality differs from the real one and how this alternate universe will work. With that said, let's move on to JJ's next fight. After defeating FaZe Sensei and Anthony Taylor, JJ knew his next fight couldn't just match Jake Paul's third fight, it had to surpass it. Jake had gained mainstream attention by fighting former MMA champion Ben Askren, a wrestler with notoriously bad striking. KSI wanted to take the same route but do it better. So when he announced a fight against Chael Sonnen, the world was speechless. Chael wasn't just any MMA fighter, he was one of the greatest trash talkers in combat sports history. While he was never an MMA champion, he had fought multiple champions and was one of the UFC's most recognizable names. Yes, like Askren, he was primarily a wrestler, but unlike Askren, Chael could actually strike and always came to win. The announcement sent shockwaves through both the YouTube and MMA communities. Fans rallied behind Uncle Chael, and KSI's name was now circulating in mainstream combat sports discussions. He was even invited onto the Ariel Helwani show, a major milestone in crossing over from YouTube boxing to the broader fight world. Even better, Chael himself had covered everything Jake Paul related, so now the media was directly comparing JJ versus Sonnen to Jake versus Askren, but with triple the intrigue, the fight. Just like in reality, this was the first time JJ showcased his new karate-style movement to the world. His speed and power were too much for Chael to handle. While Sonnen had his moments, JJ dropped him twice in the first round. By the end of the round, Chael was bleeding and swollen from the sheer damage. Then, almost immediately in round 2, JJ delivered a picture-perfect highlight reel knockout, nearly identical to his real-life KO of FaZe Temper. This win sent KSI's stock skyrocketing. He had the whole world watching, waiting for his next move. But JJ knew his next opponent couldn't just be a name. They had to be someone with genuinely dangerous striking ability. Since KSI took virtually no damage in his dominant performance against Chael Sonnen.
But yeah, round 1, did my thing, dominate. I hardly got hit. As you can see, I'm pretty blessed.
He wasted no time booking his next fight. The world was convinced he had peaked too soon, that he'd never find an opponent as well known as Chael, and that the hype would never reach those heights again. Then, JJ dropped his next fight poster. His opponent, Michael Bisping, a former UFC world champion, a Hall of Famer, and one of the best pure boxers in MMA history. Somehow, JJ had just outdone his blockbuster fight against Chael Sonnen, and this time, he was raising the stakes even higher. Moving forward, KSI was matching Jake Paul by fighting 8-round bouts. The promo and hype were so intense that the fight felt like it was taking years to arrive, even though it was scheduled just 8 weeks after Sonnen. Time stood still. The world was on edge, waiting. Then, fight night arrived. From the opening bell, KSI versus Bisping was competitive. Bisping's elite head movement made it difficult for JJ to land clean shots, forcing him to work harder than ever before. The action was relentless, and by the time the fight reached round 4, it felt like only seconds had passed. That's when JJ realized he had to adjust. He needed to blend traditional boxing with his karate-based movement. That's when he remembered. Bisping was blind in one eye. KSI targeted Bisping's good eye with stiff jabs, forcing him to react. Then, boom. pulled back and landed a perfectly timed counter right hand straight to the eye socket, swelling it shut by the end of the round. Then came round 5. KSI leaped in with a vicious right hand to Bisping's solar plexus. Forcing his hands down, came up with a brutal lead uppercut. Bisping was out cold. Both of his feet came off the floor from the sheer power. It was a highlight reel KO, the most devastating knockout in YouTube boxing history. It made Jake Paul's KO over Woodley look like child's play. And just like that, the narrative was about to take a major shift. The narrative started to turn dark. KSI was now more hated by the MMA community than Jake Paul. He had taken out 2 fan favorites, and the backlash was intense. Media outlets accused him of bullying someone with a disability, claiming he would never fight a high-level striker without some kind of advantage. Some even argued that at least Jake Paul fought a real boxer in Tommy Fury. JJ responded with a reaction video, reminding the world that he had been retired for 3 years and that fighting a pro boxer now wasn't the same for him as it was for Jake. But that wasn't enough. He couldn't stand the idea of Jake winning back the respect JJ had fought so hard to earn. So, he announced his next fight against the most famous man on the planet, Andrew Tate, a former kickboxing world champion. This was the closest thing to fighting a pure boxer, and the world was stunned. Because Tate was so polarizing, KSI suddenly found himself winning back the fans who had turned on him after his brutal finishes over Bisping and Sonnen. But this fight was different. Tate was on another level in terms of striking, and JJ knew it. This camp was all about fine-tuning his skills and becoming a true hybrid fighter. KSI fought more like a traditional boxer this time, controlling the first 3 rounds with clean, effective shots. Nothing too damaging, but enough to rack up points. Then, in round 4, Tate took over. He dominated rounds 4 through 6, making the fight dead even going into the 7th. That's when JJ shifted gears, showing exactly what he meant by becoming a hybrid. He seamlessly switched between his karate and traditional boxing styles, rocking Tate badly and leaving him on wobbly legs. But just as JJ pressed forward, Tate started dirty boxing in the clinch. As JJ broke free, he tripped, and the referee misjudged it as a knockdown. The round was now scored a 9-9 draw. Then, early in the 8th round, JJ landed a devastating body shot for the TKO victory. But when the replay rolled, controversy exploded. Just like the Usyk versus Dubois fight, it was unclear whether the shot was legal or low. Instead of celebrating KSI's biggest win yet, the world debated the ending, overshadowing his performance and the improvements he had made. KSI's fight against Andrew Tate proved he was the better fighter in his eyes, but his haters refused to let go of the controversy. They clung to the questionable finishing shot, claiming he still hadn't fought a real boxer. JJ had enough. If the world wanted a boxer, he'd give them one. He booked a fight with Tommy Fury, the man who beat Jake Paul. Now, remember the rules. This fight had to happen. Just like in real life, this would be KSI's 5th fight, but in our reality, things were different. In the real world, JJ jumped from low-level opponents straight to Tommy Fury, skipping the natural progression Jake Paul took. But here, KSI didn't just build up properly. He built up against even tougher competition than Jake ever faced. And because of that, he had already learned the hard truth. He couldn't rely solely on his unorthodox karate stance. He had to become a hybrid fighter. The difference? In this world, he didn't have to lose to figure that out. He had already adapted. This was the best prepared KSI possible. The fight begins. Just like in real life, KSI shuts down Tommy's jab, making it nearly useless. But here's where things change. Instead of clinching after every exchange, they fight in the pocket like real boxers. It looks cleaner, sharper, more technical, a fight more like Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. But even better, JJ is a complete fighter now. This is his greatest performance yet. But there's one problem. Tommy is simply too big. No matter how clean JJ lands, the size advantage is too much. Tommy absorbs everything. So it goes to the scorecards. And this time, the world is stunned. After 8 dominant rounds, the judges call it a draw. But this wasn't like the real fight. This wasn't close or competitive. KSI had run away with it. This was as bad as Gibb versus Holder, a robbery so blatant that the world couldn't ignore it. And just like that, debate was over. KSI and Jake Paul were now officially equals, if not JJ with the slight edge. After the Tommy Fury robbery, you'd think JJ would take a break, but instead, he realized something important. Jake Paul wasn't going to fight him. Jake wouldn't agree to 185 pounds. So JJ knew it wasn't about beating Jake in the ring anymore. It was about beating him in legacy. KSI set out to leave no debate. When Jake Paul booked his fight with Nate Diaz, KSI quickly jumped into action and secured a fight with George Masvidal, already a better choice than Jake's fight. Masvidal was the UFC's BMF title holder, dangerous striker, while Diaz was a jiu-jitsu master. What happened? KSI steamrolled Masvidal in 4 rounds. The fight ended with a doctor stoppage from a cut JJ caused, but before that, he dropped Masvidal multiple times. It was like Jake's win over Mike Perry, but far more brutal. There was something strange, though. The fight was scheduled for 10 rounds, a detail JJ didn't reveal to the public. This showed the world that KSI was beyond fighting lesser opponents. He was ready for the big leagues. After Jake Paul fought Nate Diaz, he returned to 8-round fights. But JJ wasn't stopping. He took 3 months off to put on weight and announced his next fight against Hasim Rahman Jr., the son of a boxing legend. Wait, does this sound familiar? In real life, Jake Paul pulled out of his fight with Rahman Jr., but in this reality, JJ is out for greatness. The fight was set for 10 rounds at 205 pounds, showing that weight was no longer an issue between KSI and Jake. Jake was just avoiding the fight. When the fight with Rahman came, it went the full 10 rounds, but it was a clear win for KSI. His speed was too much for Rahman, and he even wobbled him several times. JJ was still adjusting to the new weight, but you could see a noticeable power difference compared to when he fought Tommy Fury. Next, Jake fights another journeyman boxer, someone no one really knows. His star power is starting to fade compared to KSI's, especially with how KSI's fights are going. Speaking of KSI, he chooses to fight Nico Walsh, Muhammad Ali's grandson, who's also a pro boxer. Some even think Walsh is better than Tommy Fury. This is where JJ really starts to pull ahead in the race with Jake Paul. He's no longer just matching Jake. He's carving his own path and over-delivering. For a fight that had so much hype and intrigue, JJ ends up dominating Walsh in a 2-round war. It's reminiscent of Logan versus KSI 2, with both fighters non-stop throwing punches, but KSI's increased weight helps him absorb shots better and deliver more power. This is his first fight since Michael Bisping, where JJ delivers a chilling flatline knockout. The win sends shockwaves through the boxing scene and even gets him ranked in the top 50 in the world. KSI is now in his prime. JJ finally feels the satisfaction of the public. They're starting to see him as one of the best. So he announces his final fight against Amir Khan, a world title level boxer who's only recently retired. This is the fight where JJ feels he's done it all in the crossover scene, and it's set to be a 12-rounder to cap it off. The fight begins, and JJ wins the first 3 rounds comfortably, but then Amir Khan picks up the pace, starting to drown JJ with pressure. Khan racks up rounds 4 through 8, and JJ begins to gasp for air. Then, midway through round 9, KSI gets knocked down. He takes every second he can from the 10 count to catch his breath. The rest of the fight plays out like KSI's real-life bout with Tommy Fury, just an unbearable clinch war. JJ manages to scrape rounds 10 and 11, then drops Amir Khan in round 12. The championship rounds are intense, and the fight ends with the world on edge, waiting for the result. It's a split decision win for JJ, and he suffers his first controversial victory, not because of his opponent's skill, but because people didn't think he won. JJ seems at peace, knowing he did what Jake Paul never could. He announces he has one last name in mind before retiring: BJ Flores, Jake Paul's former coach and a pro boxer. KSI offers him $10 million just to show up, an offer no one can turn down. BJ Flores accepts the offer immediately. Who wouldn't? No one turns down that kind of money. JJ doesn't even need to sell the fight. It's marketed as his victory lap. He enters the ring wearing a Jake Paul face-covered fight kit. For 6 rounds, he bulldozes Flores, but doesn't finish him off. He enjoys the pain, soaking up the moment. It's the closest he'll get to truly beating Jake Paul in the ring. KSI relishes every second. In round 9, he finally ends it, knocking Flores out cold with an overhand right. The crowd goes wild. JJ thanks everyone who showed up. Meanwhile, Jake is fighting Mike Perry, but no one cares. Despite JJ not even promoting it, the eyes are all on him. People chose KSI over Jake, proving he's the real draw. JJ retires for a couple of months, taking time to relax and make YouTube videos, clowning Jake Paul. But when he sees Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson, a sour taste forms in his mouth. After the fight, he realizes Jake Paul will forever be linked to Tyson's legacy. Weeks later, JJ announces his final fight, his fight for legacy: KSI versus Floyd Mayweather. The world explodes. KSI's return isn't just for the crossover scene. He's now a global fan favorite. This is it. 12 rounds. Floyd's first pro fight since McGregor, and it's not just an exhibition. The fight is intense, but Floyd's defensive genius keeps landing him just out of KSI's reach. Round after round, KSI's relentless, trying to make his mark, but Floyd dances around him. At the 10th round, it looks like a typical Mayweather win until JJ changes the rhythm. Out of nowhere, he swings for the fences and boom, he knocks Floyd down. The first time in Floyd's entire career. Floyd gets back up, fighting even harder, but KSI's heart keeps him in the fight until the very end. When the final bell rings, JJ loses by a majority decision. But this time, he doesn't care. He's done it. He's left his mark on boxing, not just YouTube. KSI has built his legacy, cementing himself as a timeless, historical figure in boxing. No more YouTube boxing, just boxing forever. That's a wrap on KSI's alternate universe boxing journey, where legacy was built, legends were created, and the YouTube boxing scene was changed forever. What do you think? Would KSI KSI have outshone Jake Paul if this was his real path? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What if KSI's career went this way? Let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the wild what-if scenarios coming your way. This is just the beginning. We're diving deeper into alternate universes, bigger what-ifs, and more crazy boxing breakdowns. Like, subscribe, join the journey.